something wrong? You obviously made a mistake in judgment. Nobody messes with Sandra Clark.
What are you so upset about? You've got 100 guys calling you.
Well, today it's 99.
From a Star Search winner who landed her role by confessing her TV obsession on live TV to Hollywood's first African-American Emmy winner in comedy, the beloved sitcom 227 harbored astonishing secrets behind those famous apartment stairs. This groundbreaking show launched Oscar winners, featured tragic real-life love stories, and nearly never happened, arriving a year early thanks to an unexpected cancellation. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about 227 Fact 1. The Jeffersons' cancellation accelerated 227's debut.
Oh, please. Now, Mary, it would be a lovely world if everybody went around sticking notes on cars.
Television history is full of lucky breaks, but the timing of 227's premiere was one of the strangest coincidences in sitcom history. The show was originally scheduled to debut in 1986, giving producers plenty of time to develop scripts, build sets, and prepare for a proper launch. But everything changed when CBS made a shocking decision in the spring of 1985. After 11 successful seasons, The Jeffersons was unexpectedly canceled, leaving Marla Gibbs without a job and suddenly available for new projects. Network executives immediately saw an opportunity they couldn't pass up. Gibbs had spent a decade playing the sharp-tongued maid Florence Johnston on The Jeffersons, becoming one of the most beloved characters on television. Her availability meant CBS could fast-track 227 into production a full year ahead of schedule. The network moved quickly, assembling the cast and crew in record time. What would normally take 18 months of careful planning was compressed into just a few months of frantic preparation. The accelerated timeline created challenges for everyone involved, from set designers working overtime to build the iconic apartment building interior, to writers scrambling to complete enough scripts for a full season. Despite the rushed production schedule, 227 premiered on September 14th, 1985, less than 5 months after The Jeffersons aired its final episode. The gamble paid off immediately. Viewers who had watched Gibbs for years on The Jeffersons eagerly followed her to this new show, helping 227 find its audience right from the start. Without that unexpected cancellation, the show might have debuted to a very different television landscape a year later. Fact 2. It started in Marla Gibbs's own theater.
Listen, Conchita, personally, I think you're doing the right thing. I mean, a woman has a right to wait for that very special man, you know what I mean?
Long before 227 became a television phenomenon, it lived on stage in a small theater in Los Angeles. Marla Gibbs didn't just star in the show, she discovered it at her own Crossroads Theater, a venue she founded in 1981 specifically to showcase African-American writers and performers. The theater was located in a modest building, but it represented something much bigger for Gibbs. While still working on The Jeffersons, she wanted to create opportunities for talented black actors and playwrights who struggled to find stages willing to produce their work. Her daughter Angela Gibbs helped run the theater, eventually producing many of its shows. In 1983, a playwright named Christine Houston brought a script to Crossroads Theater. It was called 227, named after the address of the apartment building where the characters lived. The play focused on Mary Jenkins, a middle-aged housewife who spent her days gossiping with neighbors on the front stoop of their Washington, D.C. apartment building. Gibbs read the script and immediately connected with Mary's character. She saw something special in this funny, warm, slightly nosy woman who loved her community. The play opened at Crossroads Theater to modest audiences, but word spread quickly. Local critics praised Gibbs's performance, and soon television producers were attending performances to see what everyone was talking about. When CBS executives came to watch, they knew instantly that this stage play could become a hit sitcom. They approached Gibbs about adapting 227 for television, and she agreed on the condition that she could maintain creative control and helped shape the show's direction. Fact 3. Marla Gibbs kept her airline job.
Billboards up all over town saying, "Everybody with a busted tail light, please see Mary."
Before Marla Gibbs became a household name, she worked the night shift as a reservations agent for United Airlines, and she held on to that job far longer than anyone would expect. Even after landing her breakout role as Florence the Maid on the Jeffersons in 1975, Gibbs continued reporting to the airport for her overnight shifts. She would finish filming episodes during the day, then head straight to work at the airline reservations desk, answering phone calls and booking flights until the early morning hours. For 2 full years, she maintained this exhausting double life. Her reasoning was simple, but revealing about the instability of acting careers in the 1970s. Gibbs had worked too hard to build job security and benefits, and she wasn't about to give that up for a television role that might disappear at any moment. She had been a struggling actress for years before the Jeffersons, supporting her 3 children while taking small roles here and there. The airline job provided steady income, health insurance, and retirement benefits that no acting gig could guarantee. Even as Florence Johnston became one of the most popular characters on The Jeffersons, Gibbs kept her feet firmly planted in reality. She knew that sitcom characters could be written off at any time, that shows got canceled without warning, and that even successful actors faced long periods of unemployment between projects. Finally, after 2 years of this grueling schedule, CBS executives stepped in. They approached Gibbs and asked her to take a leave of absence from United Airlines. The Jeffersons had become a genuine hit, and they needed her to be fully available for filming, promotional appearances, and other commitments. Only then did Gibbs finally set aside her airline uniform. Fact 4. The stillborn baby storyline that never was.
I know what you mean. When Brenda was born, I thought she was going from the delivery room straight to high school.
Television sitcoms in the 1980s often tackled serious issues, but there was one storyline for 227 that would have crossed a line that even producers eventually recognized as too dark. During planning for the show's 2nd season, the writing team developed a devastating plot arc that would have fundamentally changed the show's tone. The proposal called for Mary Jenkins to discover she was pregnant, a surprise baby coming later in life that would bring both joy and concern to the Jenkins household. The storyline would unfold over several episodes, with Mary and Lester preparing for the new arrival, while the neighbors rallied around them with support and advice. But then came the twist that made this storyline truly shocking. In the proposed plot, Mary would go into labor and deliver a stillborn baby, forcing the Jenkins family and their friends to cope with profound grief and loss. The writers believed this storyline would showcase Marla Gibbs's dramatic range and add emotional depth to a show that was primarily comedic. When Gibbs read the outline, she was horrified. She immediately pushed back against the idea, arguing that 227 was a family sitcom that provided audiences with warmth, laughter, and comfort. Introducing such a tragic storyline would betray the trust viewers had placed in the show. Gibbs understood that while sitcoms could address serious topics, there were limits to how dark they should go. A stillborn baby wasn't a teaching moment or a very special episode. It was trauma that would hang over the show forever. She took her concerns directly to the producers, and her arguments proved persuasive. The storyline was completely abandoned, and Mary Jenkins never became pregnant during the show's entire 5-season run. Fact 5. Sandra Clark was never meant to stay.
Now I got 3 words for you. You pack your bags. Oh, make it 5. Get out.
When Jackie Harry first appeared on 227, nobody expected her character to become one of the show's most iconic elements. Sandra Clark was written as a temporary character, a flashy, man-hungry neighbor who would show up for a few episodes and then disappear. The writers conceived Sandra as a comic foil to the more conservative Mary Jenkins, someone who could stir up trouble, create some laughs, and then exit the story. Harry filmed her first episodes without any expectation of becoming a series regular. She had been working steadily in theater and television, but hadn't yet found a role that would make her a star. Sandra Clark was supposed to be just another job, a few weeks of work on a sitcom before moving on to the next audition. But something unexpected happened when those early episodes aired. Audiences absolutely loved Sandra. Her bold fashion choices, her unapologetic pursuit of men, and her hilarious one-liners made her an instant fan favorite. The studio received letters asking when Sandra would appear again. Test audiences specifically mentioned her character as a highlight. The producers quickly realized they had stumbled onto comedy gold. They approached Harry about becoming a regular cast member, and she eagerly accepted. Sandra Clark transformed from a temporary guest character into one of the show's central figures, appearing in nearly every episode for the remainder of the series. The chemistry between Harry's outrageous Sandra and Marla Gibbs's judgmental but loving Mary became the heart of the show. Their friendship, despite their completely different approaches to life, gave 227 much of its warmth and humor. What started as a brief guest appearance turned into a career-defining role that would earn Harry an Emmy Award and permanent place in television history. Fact 6. First African-American Emmy winner in comedy.
Oh, this is fabulous! Oh, gosh, thank you so much. Thank you, God.
On September 20th, 1987, Jackie Harry walked onto the Emmy Award stage and made history in a way that exposed how long black actresses had been overlooked by the Television Academy. When her name was called as the winner of Outstanding Supporting Actress in a comedy series, Harry became the first African-American woman ever to win a Primetime Emmy Award in a comedy category. The significance of this achievement cannot be overstated. The Emmy Awards had been honoring television excellence since 1949, nearly 4 decades earlier. In all those years, despite brilliant comedic performances by countless black actresses on shows ranging from Amos and Andy to Good Times to The Jeffersons, the Television Academy had never given a single one of them an Emmy for comedy. Harry's win for playing Sandra Clark on 227 broke through a barrier that should never have existed in the first place. Her acceptance speech was gracious and brief, but the moment itself spoke volumes about representation and recognition in Hollywood. Harry had created a character who was bold, sexy, funny, and completely unapologetic, traits that television rarely allowed black women to embody at that time. Sandra Clark wasn't a stereotype or a sidekick. She was a fully realized person whose humor came from her confidence and her refusal to follow anyone's rules but her own. The Emmy victory validated not just Harry's performance, but the entire show's approach to storytelling. 227 presented black life as rich, complex, and funny without relying on caricatures or poverty narratives. Harry's historic win opened doors for other black actresses in comedy, proving that the Television Academy could recognize excellence when it was undeniable. Today, she remains the first, but thankfully no longer the only African-American woman to achieve this honor. Fact 7. Regina King was only 14 years old.
Can I go to the dance with Paula and Diane and Calvin and Kathy?
Back up.
How far?
To Calvin.
When Regina King made her first appearance on 227, she was just 14 years old and had never acted professionally before in her life. The future Oscar winner started her journey to Hollywood stardom in the most modest way possible, playing Brenda Jenkins, the daughter of Mary and Lester. King had no agent, no previous credits, and no formal training when she auditioned for the role. She was simply a teenager from Los Angeles who thought acting might be interesting. Her natural talent was immediately obvious to the casting directors, who saw something special in this young girl's screen presence and comedic timing. They offered her the part, and King suddenly found herself on a professional television set, learning the craft of acting from experienced performers like Marla Gibbs and Hal Williams. The role of Brenda wasn't particularly large at first, but it gave King the opportunity to develop her skills in front of live audiences. 227 was filmed before a studio audience, which meant King had to deliver her lines and hit her marks while hundreds of people watched. For a 14-year-old with no experience, this could have been terrifying, but King thrived under the pressure. She absorbed everything she could from the veteran actors around her, watching how they timed their jokes, how they reacted to audience responses, and how they maintained energy through multiple takes. Over 5 seasons on the show, viewers watched Brenda Jenkins grow from a young teenager into a young woman, and they were simultaneously watching Regina King develop into a serious actress. After 227 ended in 1990, King continued building her career, eventually winning 4 Emmy Awards and an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. But it all started at age 14 on the set of 227. Fact 8. The Star Search connection that launched a career.
Oh, you're much prettier than she. Give this kid a Nobel Prize.
Countess Vaughn landed her role on 227 in one of the strangest casting stories in television history. And it happened because she told the truth on national television. In 1992, Vaughn was just 12 years old and competing on Star Search, the popular talent competition show hosted by Ed McMahon. She had already won several rounds, impressing audiences with her powerful voice and confident stage presence. During one of her appearances, McMahon asked Vaughn about her interests and hobbies, the kind of casual conversation that filled time between performances. Vaughn mentioned that she loved watching television, and when McMahon asked if she had a favorite show, she didn't hesitate. She told him that 227 was her absolute favorite program, that she watched it every week without fail. This wasn't a calculated answer designed to get attention. It was simply an honest response from a young girl who genuinely loved the show. But that moment of honesty changed Vaughn's life. Producers from 227 happened to be watching Star Search that night, and they immediately took notice. The show was in its final season, and they were looking for a young actress to play Alexandria DeWitt, a new character being introduced to refresh the cast. When they heard Vaughn declare her love for 227 on national television, they saw an opportunity. The producers contacted Vaughn's representatives and invited her to audition for the role. She came in, read for the part, and impressed everyone in the room. Her audition was strong, but the fact that she was already a genuine fan of the show sealed the deal. Vaughn was cast as Alexandria, making her television acting debut during 227's 5th and final season. Fact 9. Kia Goodwin's mother ended her contract.
How was school today?
Fine.
Yeah? Are you smarter today than you were yesterday?
Yeah, so I'm not going back tomorrow. Just kidding, Mom.
The sudden disappearance of Tiffany Holloway from 227 after the 2nd season left many viewers wondering what happened to the character and the young actress who played her. Kia Goodwin had been part of the show since the beginning, playing Tiffany, one of the neighborhood kids who frequently hung around the Jenkins apartment. But when the 3rd season began in 1987, Tiffany was gone without explanation, and Goodwin never returned. The reason for her departure had nothing to do with creative differences, budget cuts, or the typical reasons actors leave television shows. Instead, it came down to a mother's unhappiness with life in California. Goodwin's mother had relocated the family from their home on the East Coast to Los Angeles so her daughter could pursue acting opportunities. For 2 years, they lived in California, while Goodwin filmed 227. But Goodwin's mother never adjusted to life on the West Coast. She missed her family, her friends, and the familiar surroundings of home. The distance from everything she knew became increasingly difficult to bear. Finally, Goodwin's mother made a decision that prioritized her own well-being and her family's happiness over her daughter's acting career. She approached the producers of 227 and requested that Kia be released from her contract so the family could move back to the East Coast. The producers had no interest in forcing a child actor to remain on the show against her family's wishes, so they agreed to let Goodwin out of her obligations. Tiffany Holloway simply stopped appearing with no explanation given on screen. Goodwin returned to the East Coast with her family and largely stepped away from acting, making only occasional appearances in television and film over the following years. Fact 10. The tragic love story. Behind the scenes.
Rose,
Yes, Warren.
we've been dating for a while now.
3 months, 1 week, 4 days, 17 hours, and 4 minutes.
Behind the cameras of 227, a love story unfolded that began with joy and ended in heartbreaking tragedy. Elena Reed Hall, who played Rose Holloway on the show, met actor Kevin Peter Hall when he guest starred in an episode. Kevin Hall was best known for playing the Predator in the science fiction films and for his role as Harry on the sitcom Harry and the Hendersons. Standing 7 feet 2 inches tall, he was an imposing physical presence, but known for his gentle personality and kind nature. The connection between Elena and Kevin was immediate and powerful. They fell in love during his time on the 227 set, and their relationship quickly became serious. In a case of life imitating art, the show's writers incorporated their real romance into the storyline. Rose Holloway married Warren Merriweather, played by Kevin Hall, in an on-screen wedding that reflected their genuine feelings for each other. Shortly after filming that episode, Elena and Kevin married in real life, surrounded by their 227 castmates who had watched their love story develop. The couple seemed destined for a long, happy life together. But tragedy struck in 1990. Kevin Hall was involved in a car accident that required him to receive blood transfusions during emergency treatment. Unknown to anyone at the time, the blood he received was contaminated with HIV. In April 1991, less than 3 years after their wedding, Kevin Peter Hall died from AIDS at just 35 years old. Elena was devastated by the loss of her husband, a death that was entirely preventable and resulted from a medical procedure meant to save his life. She continued working in television and theater until her own death from breast cancer in 2002. Fact 11. Marla Gibbs co-wrote and sang the theme song.
Yeah. See, when I was a little girl, I used to go down to the post office, and he'd stamp my forehead, special delivery.
Marla Gibbs wasn't content with just starring in 227 and serving as an executive producer. She also wanted to give the show a personal touch that audiences would hear every single episode. The show's theme song, There's No Place Like Home, became one of the most recognizable sitcom themes of the 1980s, and many viewers never realized that Gibbs herself was responsible for both writing it and performing it. Working alongside composer Ray Colcord, Gibbs helped craft lyrics that perfectly captured the show's core message about community, family, and the importance of home. The song wasn't flashy or complicated. It was a simple, heartfelt celebration of the apartment building where the characters lived and the relationships they built with their neighbors. The lyrics emphasize that home isn't just a physical place, but the people who make you feel loved and accepted. Gibbs insisted on performing the theme song herself, believing her voice would give it an authenticity that a professional singer might not achieve. She wasn't a trained vocalist, and her voice had a warm, conversational quality that matched the show's down-to-earth tone. Every week when the opening credits rolled, audiences heard Gibbs singing about the comfort of coming home to familiar faces and friendly voices. The theme song became so associated with the show that it was impossible to imagine 227 without it. Gibbs's multiple roles on the show as star, executive producer, and theme song co-writer and performer demonstrated the level of creative control she maintained over the project. This wasn't just another acting job for her, it was a passion project where she could shape every element to reflect her vision of what the show should be. Fact 12. The Sesame Street Urban Legend.
Sandra, that theatrical agency you work for, Do you see many celebrities?
I'm the receptionist. I see them all.
And they see all of us.
For years, a persistent rumor circulated among television fans claiming that 227 and Sesame Street shared the same set for their iconic front stoop scenes. According to this urban legend, the stairs where Mary Jenkins gossiped with her neighbors were the exact same steps where Oscar the Grouch's trash can sat, and Big Bird walked past every day. The rumor seemed plausible because both shows featured prominent exterior stoop scenes, and both had apartment buildings as central locations. Television fans repeated this story to each other, convinced they had discovered a clever cost-saving measure by the studios. Some people even claimed they could see similarities in the architecture if they looked closely enough. But this widely believed fact is completely false, and basic geography proves it impossible. 227 was filmed entirely in Hollywood, California at Sunset Gower Studios, where the apartment building interior and exterior sets were constructed on sound stages. Sesame Street, on the other hand, has always been filmed in New York City, first at various locations and eventually at the Kaufman Astoria Studios in Queens. The two shows were produced on opposite sides of the country by different production companies, and their sets never had any connection whatsoever. The confusion likely arose because both shows featured similar architectural elements common to urban apartment buildings, like concrete stoops with railings. But these similarities were coincidental, not evidence of shared sets. The urban legend persisted for so long because it seemed like the kind of clever Hollywood trick that would make sense. Studios finding ways to maximize their investments by reusing expensive sets for multiple productions. In reality, the 227 stoop and the Sesame Street stoop existed in completely different cities and never met. Fact 13. Cheryl Lee Ralph. Almost played Sandra.
People wanted to let you know right up front how hard it was, how difficult it was going to be. It wasn't going to be like this, it wasn't going to be like that.
Before Jackie Harry became synonymous with the character of Sandra Clark, another actress was seriously considered for the role, and the casting decision nearly went in a very different direction. Cheryl Lee Ralph, who would later become famous for her role in the musical Dreamgirls and decades later win an Emmy Award for Abbott Elementary, was one of the actresses who auditioned for the part of the glamorous man-chasing neighbor. The producers were genuinely interested in Ralph for the role, seeing her as a strong candidate who could bring both comedy and charisma to Sandra. She had the right look, the acting chops, and the stage presence that the character required. For a brief moment, it seemed possible that Ralph would join the cast of 227 and make Sandra Clark her breakout television role. But Marla Gibbs had other ideas. When Jackie Harry came into audition, Gibbs immediately recognized that she had found the perfect actress for Sandra. Something about Harry's performance clicked in a way that went beyond technical skill or comic timing. Harry embodied Sandra's boldness and confidence so completely that Gibbs couldn't imagine anyone else in the role. She went to the producers and made her position clear, insisting that Harry was the right choice and that they needed to cast her. Gibbs had enough creative control over the show that her opinion carried significant weight. The producers trusted her instincts and ultimately chose Harry over Ralph for the part. This casting decision changed both actresses' careers. Harry became a breakout star and Emmy winner, while Ralph continued building her career in other directions, eventually finding her own success in theater and television decades later. Fact 14. Elena Reed Hall worked two shows simultaneously.
And the leaves are rustling overhead, and everything is peaceful and quiet.
How quiet can it be with all that babbling, chirping, whistling, and rustling?
Elena Reed Hall accomplished a feat of scheduling and endurance that would exhaust most actors, maintaining starring roles on two television shows, filming in different cities for 3 full years. When Hall joined 227 as Rose Holloway, she was already well established as Olivia Robinson on Sesame Street, a role she had played since 1976. Leaving Sesame Street wasn't an option she wanted to consider, The character meant too much to her and to the children who watched the show every day. But she also couldn't pass up the opportunity to join 227 and work alongside Marla Gibbs. So Hall made a decision that required extraordinary commitment. She would do both shows at the same time. The logistics were complicated and demanding. Sesame Street taped in New York City, while 227 filmed in Los Angeles, meaning Hall spent 3 years flying back and forth across the country on a regular schedule. She would film her scenes for Sesame Street in New York, then immediately board a plane to Los Angeles for 227 rehearsals and tapings, then fly back to New York to start the cycle again. The travel alone was exhausting, but Hall also had to mentally shift between two completely different characters and two completely different worlds. On Sesame Street, she was a warm, nurturing presence teaching lessons to preschoolers. On 227, she was a sophisticated, sometimes dramatic neighbor dealing with adult situations. For 3 years, Hall maintained this punishing schedule without complaint. Finally, in 1988, she made the difficult decision to leave Sesame Street after 12 years so she could focus entirely on 227. Her departure from Sesame Street was emotional for both Hall and for fans. Fact 15. The show's creator used a pseudonym.
And I was going to give her something before she opened her big mouth.
What were you going to give me?
A free album.
The name that appears in the opening credits of 227 as the show's creator tells only part of the story, because C.J. Banks never actually existed. The real creator of 227 was a playwright named Christine Houston, but her name appears nowhere in the television show's credits. Houston wrote the original stage play that Marla Gibbs performed at the Crossroads Theater, creating the characters and storylines that would eventually become the basis for the sitcom. When television producers decided to adapt the play for CBS, they made extensive changes to Houston's work. Characters were altered, storylines were rewritten, and the show's tone shifted to accommodate network television standards and commercial breaks. These changes were significant enough that Houston felt the television version no longer represented her artistic vision. She was unhappy with how her work had been transformed and didn't want her name associated with what she considered a fundamentally different product. Rather than fight with the network or create public controversy, Houston took her name off the project entirely. But television credits required someone to be listed as the show's creator, so a pseudonym was created. C.J. Banks became the credited creator of 227, a fictional name that would appear in the opening credits of every episode for 5 seasons. Viewers had no idea they were watching a show created by someone who didn't exist. The use of pseudonyms isn't uncommon when writers want to distance themselves from projects they feel have been compromised, but it remains a strange footnote in the show's history. Christine Houston's original vision lives on in the stage version of 227, which is occasionally still performed in theaters, while the television adaptation credits a name that was nothing more than a placeholder.